Hello and welcome to another Blender tutorial brought to you by the Louis Art. My name is Manuel Okafo and I hope you're having a wonderful day. In this tutorial, I'm going to be guiding you on how to create a very clean mesh that is usable for animation from your Marvelous Design simulation. So if you're not familiar with Marvelous Designer is an application that allows you to create really high detailed and realistic details in your cloth model. And it's a very fast workflow, especially if you're working in a big production or if you're trying to get a more realistic look without sculpting it out. So let's get started. I have everything set. I have our character in the scene. I've gone ahead to create the cloth asset, as you can see here. So this is what we'll be working with today. So I went with something more complex that had like a bit of layered effect, as you can see. I can just grab this and we have another cloth under it. So this is going to really show you everything you need to know and understand from this entire workflow. So let's go ahead and prep this thing to export it to Blender. So I'm just going to select all of these and I'm going to increase the particle distance to from 10 to 6. It's a bit dense, but it's fine because this is going to be the final model that we're going to use to transfer all the details onto the retopologized mesh. So you could either do this using ZBrush or you could use do this using a Blender with the shrink wrap modifier. So just give it some time for it to just load it up. So once you have your final mesh, as you can see, this is as detailed as it can be. You can just select the asset we want to export. You go to File and go to Export. I'm going to export selected OBJ. And I'm going to select this one and hit save. So for the settings, you can just leave everything as default. You can leave this as unwelded and thin. It doesn't really matter for most part, but the default setting is pretty good. No need to weld it because this is not the final cloth asset. So once you're happy, you can hit OK and export. Okay, so now inside Blender, we can go ahead and import this cloth asset. So I'll go to Import OBJ. I have it saved in my desktop. For the clamp size, which is basically the size of that, how accurate you want the. For example, if I set this to 0 and hit import, so it imports the shirt, but it's not scaled rightly. It's quite bigger than we need it to be, so we have to like scale it manually or something. But if you get the right clamp size, you fix that issue. So I've worked with this for several times and I have some presets that work for me. Basically, when I set this to 5, it works and imports perfectly. So that's what I will do. So now I have my cloth asset in the scene and we can go on from here. So we can go to geometry, and under geometry or under normals, we want to uncheck the smooth normal to get rid of those lines, and we want to go to the face orientation and recalculate it. So if you hit Shift N, it's going to recalculate it. Or you can go here and go to mesh, go to normals and flip it or recalculate the outside. So once you're done, we are good to go and we can disable this. Okay, so there are a couple of things you should bear in mind. The tool that makes this possible for us to be able to create a very quick and nice retopology for cloth from Marvelous Designer is a relatively new tool. So that tool allows you to get any mesh and convert it into the UV plane right in the viewport. So if I open up my UV window and we go into the UV, you can see the current UV map of this. So this is what you get from Marvelous Designer. So one thing you can go is to go to UVSim from Island and do unwrap. This is a dense mesh and it's going to take a bit longer than usual, so we'll just let it do that. Okay, so it's done now, and so we can see how it's organized. So I'm going to rotate this, you know what, we'll leave this for now and I'll explain why I have to rotate this. So the tool that makes this possible is a new system called the create UVMesh. So let's just prototype it. So I'm going to add monkey, okay, and as you can see, it has a UV map already, and we can go to object, create UV mesh. So depending on the density of your mesh, it's going to take longer, or it's going to take it more quick. It's going to be faster. So this is relatively faster because of the density. But as you can see, we have an exact replica of the UV right in the 3D viewport. So there are a lot of things, or a lot of application for this particular there's a lot of application for just being able to flatten your UV in the 3D viewport because you can now attach a lot of things, and because another great thing is it allows you to be able to transform this back to the original form. So you can just apply or add any tool or any prop or anything to kind of conform to the shape of the monkey. So this is the basic principle of what we're doing. So we'll be flattening the UV and then retopologizing it and then transferring it back to the clothes shape. Okay, so of course we can see we have a plane here, so we can just delete this and we don't need that. So there are a couple of things you want to bear in mind. So number one, like I told you, to convert this into a UV mesh, the density of the mesh is something you have to bear in mind. So if it's really dense, it's going to take forever to create that. So you want to find a way to optimize it. And when you're optimizing it, you want to make sure that you still have those big details. So those big details that you can consider is like this fold right here. This fold will be considered a big detail or a primary detail. So those things that will be quite difficult to transfer with projection or using the shrink wrap or even using ZBrush. Those are things you want to make sure you retain those shapes. So like this fold, we want to make sure even though we optimize it, we want to be able to retain the shapes. So that's one thing we have to bear in mind. Another thing we have to bear in mind is, let me get back my tool and delete this. So let's get back Susan the monkey. Don't worry, these are just things you need to bear in mind so that you don't run into any unwanted issues. So I'm going to apply the rotation and center the origin. So this is really important because if I scale this up right now and then apply any of this and do check create UV mesh, the scale will not match Susan, even though it can still morph onto this. It's going to be problematic in the future when we have retopologized, and that's something we don't want. We don't want to waste our time for nothing. Okay, so another thing you have to bear in mind is the orientation of this. So if we rotate this, rotate Z 90 degrees and create the UV mesh, it's going to display based off this. Okay, so if we want to create the UV mesh facing here, which typically once you convert it to a UV mesh, you don't want to play with mess up the scale so much. You don't want to mess up the location so that it can just automatically conform to the shape without no issue. So we can just rotate this again to something we're happy with, and then when we convert it, then there's no problem with that. Okay, so that's basically what you have to bear in mind, and once you just do all this stuff, you'll be fine. So let's get started. So I'm going to select the shirt and duplicate it. I'll go ahead and call this one high res, the high detail, and we can hide this for now, and then we have this which will be the low res. Okay, so we can see the density of the mesh, and a quick way we could just decrease this is use the decimate modifier. So I'm going to add that. So like I told you, you want to be able to reduce the detail without losing those primary shapes, because if you lose it, it will be close to impossible to project that back onto your model, and it's pretty much useless or not very effective way of working with it. So we can try reducing the ratio to 0.3. So we can see we're losing the geometry. we're still returning those nice shapes. So we can try 0.2. So we want to reduce this as much as possible without losing details. So I think 0.3 is 0.3, 0.2. So let's say 0.2. Well, let's just end with 0.3. I'm happy with that. Okay, so once we've kind of registered, we can go ahead and hit apply. But before we do that, let's make sure that the UV is facing the right position we want it to face. So currently it's not facing, so let's fix that. We can just apply this anyways. Or we can, let's do it for the high first, so we are not having to repeat any process. So select all of these, and let's just rearrange this a bit. So I'm going to select this rotate Z 90 degrees, rotate Z 180, just to make this to face the upwards. So we're kind of rearranging it to something that will work good for us in the scene. So you can just rotate it using simple methods. So for these ones, they're not really so important per se, so we can just place them here. And grab this and just place it here. So they don't have to all fit in this UV grid. Okay, so now we can duplicate this. I'll call this low. Okay, so we quickly apply the estimate modifier so we can keep moving now. Apply. Okay, so we have this and we have the UV set and we have low geometry, and we can now go ahead and create it. But before we create it, like I said, it's important you apply the rotation and scale, and you make sure you set the origin to geometry. And now we can go ahead and create UVMesh. So it has generated the model, and you can see here's it. So we can go into the edit mode and grab this and just delete it. Okay. So currently the location is here, and we can work from this, but it's not really ideal. So we probably need to move it to somewhere more convenient. So I'm just going to insert keyframe for that position, and then I can move this to this position. Okay, so we can just focus on this. So I'm not going to show you the entire process of me going in and retopologizing it, but I'm going to kind of give you guys a gist of things you should do that will make your life easier. Okay, so for retopologizing it, you can just add a simple plane. Of course, we have to put it above it. So I'm going to scale this down and start working. So one thing you should bear in mind is you should watch out for all these corners, because since this is a cloth model, it's kind of looping with each other. So I will tell you how you go with topology. So we can start creating the first edge flow here. Okay, so we'll extrude this and extrude this. So when we get to this point, we don't just continue extruding like this. What we do is we end it here, and we can add another edge loop and then continue here. So same thing, we don't continue like this. We create another edge loop and end it here. So that's basically the same workflow. I'm going to do this quickly. This will take you, the first time I did it, it just took me 10 to 12 minutes. So you just need to focus on the edge flow. So when we get to this point, we pull this here, add another edge loop, and then extrude this. So I'm done retopologizing it, and we can just move forward to the next stage, which is to just transfer all the data and combine everything. So we can just make sure that this whole mesh is evenly distributed. It's not really important, but it also helps if you have evenly distributed um, geometry or topology, so that all the details can be transferred nicely. Adding more edge loops will also help to transfer more details. So like for the hand area where that tend to have more details, you probably want to add more edge loops there, so that like all the nice folds will carry along nicely. So that's what I'm basically doing. Okay, so well, I'm happy with this, and we can move on from here, because we have like we have like keyframe for this one to the initial position, so we can just parent this. We parent this to this because we already moved the position and we want it to go back there. Also, let's apply rotation and scale and move it much closer, something like this. So at this point I can duplicate this and move it to my trash layer, that I may call upon it again if in case I need to go back one more step. So this is what we have so far. So depending on the pipeline which you're working on, if you're working for games, if you're working for movies or animation, so for this I want to transmit a bit of details through the mesh. So I'm going to apply subdivision, but I'm going to apply a simple subdivision. So the simple subdivision is going to preserve all the sharp edges. Okay, this is going to smooth out the edges. I just want to subdivide it some more. Okay, and then I can hit apply. And now I'm going to add a surface deform modifier, and I drop this UVMesh and bind it. And I am also going to clear the keyframes. Okay, so it's back there. I can delete the keyframe. So if I select the UVMesh, we can isolate it. With this UVMesh selected, I can morph it back now, and you can see we got the shape which we're looking for. And we can hide this to see what's coming across. So we did a pretty good job. We are getting those nice folds. I will unhide this and move it aside so that we can compare and make sure we have all the right details coming through. So far we have like a decent amount of details, but we got this error. So let's fix that. I am going to, so now it's just basically tweaking and troubleshooting till we get it to look perfect. Okay, so I'm going to select this and let's see what we can do. I will not fix the free edges because we can fix that later, but I think we need one more level of subdivision. I mean, you can work with that if you're comfortable with that, but I want one more level of subdivision so that I can really get those nice detail from Marvelous. I can apply this again. Okay, so let's bring it back. So we're getting more detail now, as you can see. We apply subdivision, so we're getting more detail coming across, which is exactly what I want. So now what's left for us is to just combine or close out these seams, and then we should be done with this. So this is looking pretty good, and I can go ahead and apply this. So I'm going to duplicate this again and move it to our trash layer. So this is all we have. Okay, so this is what we have, and I'll apply the surface deform, and we're left with this. So depending on how much time you have to want to match them, I'm going to show you a very quick and easy process. It's not going to make the seams very nice. It's not going to give it nice topology, but it's a very fast way and fast and easy way to kind of go about it. So first of all, let's fix this. I'm going to relax this. So if you press F6, you can increase the iteration of the relax factor. So I'm increasing it to 10, so you can just work fast. Okay, so by the way, the F6 shortcut is just basically clicking on what is that? Adjust last operation. Just have it where it's meant to be. So I'm going to select these two edges, okay, and hit the W key and do bridge. So it should bridge these two edge loops. Also, I'm going to bring out the setting and sorry, not twist. I want to add one more segment so we have like one live loop. But before we do that, we can just create our UVs for now, and it will be helpful later for selecting. So I'm going to open the UV, select everything, and just hit unwrap. And because they are not connected, they're going to just unwrap close to what the one from Marvelous Designer looks like. Okay, so we have that. Of course, it will be messed up once we add more edge loops, but we can fix that later. So I am going to select this, and like I said, we'll do the bridge. We'll do the bridging for all of it. For some reason, it's taking longer than usual. But before that, sorry, I need to check the faces. Okay, that's good. Let's just check the face orientation, just to make sure everything is A-okay. So one more time, bridge. So basically, I'll be using a combination of the bridge tool. I'll be using also using the grid fill to kind of combine them. And if for those I cannot solve with those, then I can use the manual merging. Then I will merge it myself. But if it's important to you to have like precise merging, especially with the sims, then you probably want to take some more time to do it. But I'm just kind of speeding through it. Okay, so we're done with that. Let's unhide this one. Let's do the next one. So we select this to edge and do bridge. Okay, we'll repeat the same thing. It's just more convenient, especially for animation. So we're working with like decent topology. Your riggers are going to thank you for it, and it works better with subdivision. Okay, so if you run into something like this, so if you run into something like that, it's just a matter of tweaking the parameters and getting it to look good. Okay, so we have that. So we can first try to click on reverse. So it fixed that. Okay, and we keep moving. So we've done this one. Let's see, are we good? Okay, so we're good. we can move on to this. So I'm done combining it, and I'm really liking how it turned out. One thing you should bear in mind is, I forgot to mention this, and it's pretty important. Okay, so let's also select this hierarchy. Okay, so one thing you should bear in mind for combining them. So if I select this mesh, you want to make sure that they are in the same position. You want to make sure it aligns perfectly on the same line. I had to even redo some stuff because I failed to do that. And if you don't do that, what you will get is like the mesh looking bloated, which is definitely far from what we want. Okay, so we are almost done now, just finalizing everything. So let's compare and contrast. We can get this high mesh and duplicate it, just move it sideways like this. So if we select the same material, you can see how it's looking. So this is the process. You can also opt for a lower geometry count. I just wanted to really transfer the whole detail with this method just to show you. But of course you can go with something lower than this to transfer the detail. That works well. And you can, like you can see, I easily created sim. If I can go into the edit mode, I created nice sim using this method because it allowed me to create nice edge loops. Yeah, so that's it, guys. I hope this was helpful. Just one final chevron shown. If you want to do that, you can add the shrink wrap. Just make sure you're not missing out on any detail. So I'm going to select the high geometry, and you can see it's just kind of straighten something out, just to even match even more. And so for most part, you did a pretty good job, as you can see. We transfer the detail, and now we can add subdivisions, and it just works much better compared to doing the same thing here. So if you add subdivisions, it will look worse. Okay, so that'll be it for this tutorial. I hope this was helpful. If you enjoyed it, give this video a thumbs up, and if you wish to see more from me, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So bye bye for now. See you next time.